Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Delighted to return to U.S. Andersen. We've been reading the beautiful book, 3 Magic Words, and we've talked about the lock, the illusion of evil, the mystery of mind, and the secret of form. And today we're really going to talk about the key of intuition. This chapter is great. Each of the chapters in 3 Magic Words can be read independently, and today we're dealing with intuition. So far we've dissected the universal mind, the idea that evil is an illusion, and tried to come to an understanding of the mystery of the mind and the power of form. That last episode talked about things like the secret doctrine, and it's very powerful. I recommend that one. Intuition. A mighty epoch of man draws near. What wondrous things there will be. Thy heart in place of thine ears shall hear. Instead of thine eyes, thy mind shall see. Intuition defined. We are using the word intuition to cover a good deal more than the occurrence of hunches. Under intuition, we are classifying all the mysterious and apparently unexplainable phenomenon which pass largely unnoticed in our world. Clairvoyance, thought transference, materializing and dematerializing objects, levitation, contact with the spirit world, in addition to an instinctive grasp of the laws of construction such as in mathematics and music. Intuition describes our recognition and use of the great truth that mind is greater than matter, and that the universal subconscious mind contains the knowledge of all things and all times, is the substance from which everything is made, and is responsive to thought and desire. The studies of Dr. Rhine, Dr. J.B. Rhine, through the work of his parapsychology laboratory at Duke University, has proved that the mind of man has the power to affect inert matter. Dr. Rhine had a machine throw dice. The frequency of each number appearing was strictly in accordance with the law of averages. However, when a subject sat nearby and concentrated on a certain number, this desired number appeared much more frequently than chance would allow. To test precognition, a machine shuffled a pack of playing cards, and subjects wrote down their predictions of the exact sequence of the cards from the top to the bottom of the deck. Again, the number of correct predictions ruled out pure chance. Dr. Rhine injected time into his test and had his subjects predict the sequence a week ahead of shuffling of the cards. Once more, the correct guesses were far greater than the law of averages. Testing for telepathy, subjects were separated by 1/8 of a mile, one looking at one of 52 cards of a playing deck, the other attempting to visualize the card and name it. As many as 19 out of 25 cards were named correctly. Subjects have been separated by oceans, and still the percentage of success remains equally high. Clairvoyantly, the prediction of what card would come next from the deck has been successfully forecast 26 times in a row. Now, what Dr. Rhine proved in his exhaustive scientific and statistical inquiry is this: the mind of man can affect inert matter. The mind of man can see into the future. The mind of man can receive and transmit thoughts regardless of the amount of intervening space between minds. Dr. Rhine has proved that the mind is independent of the bounds of space and time, thus there must be survival of some kind on the other side of the grave. These are the conclusions reached by a scientific study, using all the modern methods and statistical classifications that have evolved. Our gasoline engine and atomic energy, conducted at one of the finest universities in the world under the surveillance of an internationally known and respected scientist. Dr. Rhine's measurement and investigations are proving this truth. The greatest power in all creation exists within the mind of man. Psychic phenomena. Had we not been blinded, we should have seen it long ago. Many from biblical times onward have shown us the way, but the truth has not always chosen the wise for its instrument. A peasant girl from Lorraine liberated France. The voices of the subconscious mind revealed the future to Joan and cast her in one of the greatest roles ever played by a woman in the human drama. The young Bernadette knelt before a vision of her subconscious mind in the town of Lourdes, and to this very day such faith imbues the sick and ailing who pilgrimage there that hundreds of cures are effected each year. Plato proved the existence of the great world beyond the flesh. The universal subconscious mind possessed Leonardo da Vinci so completely that everything he touched was wrought by genius. Shakespeare clothed the eternal truths in the parable of human drama. Einstein and Edison supplied mathematics and chemistry to arrive at God. Mahatma Gandhi visualized the great unity in the brotherhood of man. And this is far from all. Our world has daily demonstrations of the miraculous powers inherent in man's subconscious. These are those who dispute, who scoff, who ridicule, those who would tear down the monument of man's universal spirit to place in its stead the pygmy of physical man, swallowed in unimaginable space and time. But the record will not be denied. Daniel Douglas Hume, the celebrated psychic, was able to perform levitation. The great physicist Sir William Crookes testified to it. So did the Earl of Dunraven, Lord Lindsay, Captain C. Wynne, and many others. Through a lifetime of amazing psychic phenomenon under the strictest conditions imposed by all judging tribunals, under the minutest surveillance of the finest scientific minds of the day, no one ever was able to account for Holmes' miraculous demonstrations on any other basis than his having access to some tremendous power that was able to abrogate physical law. Harold Sherman kept in contact with Sir Hubert Wilkins by mental telepathy when the famous explorer set out to the Arctic to rescue some stranded Russian flyers in 1937. This, when Sir Hubert could not obtain radio communication. Abraham Lincoln dreamt of his death in the exact manner in which it occurred, and he left a letter behind written 10 days before his death to prove it. Robert Louis Stevenson, at death's door, testified when he recovered that for a while he had got up and walked away from his body. For many years, Mrs. John Curran automatically wrote prose and poetry under the direction of Patience Worth, a personality adopted by her subconscious mind. Dante Gabriel Rossetti remembered a previous life when he wrote, "I have been here before, but when or how I cannot tell. I know the grass beyond the door, the sweet keen smell, the sighing sound, the lights around the shore." A skeptical world cannot look away any longer. If records were kept of all such phenomenon, they would overflow the nation's libraries. The mechanistic and material age is passing. Man is evolving into the age of the mind, wherein his dominion over the universe will shortly be achieved. Mind over matter, mind over time. Thus will come a future of many dimensioned proportions with man at the center and yet encompassing all. Genius. Thought transference, clairvoyance, the affecting of matter and circumstance through mind power, contact with the spirit world, remembrance of previous lives are all results of the duality of the mind of man, and the fact that the universal subconscious mind responds to suggestion. All the powers which might fall under the heading of intuition are possessed by the subconscious mind alone, but they are available only when controlled by the conscious mind. The subconscious mind may see without eyes, hear without ears, leave the body to elicit information and return again. It may see into the future, see into the past, form circumstance and matter. Its existence is independent of the body, for it lives in all things and encompasses infinity. It is the soul of each man and the soul of the universe. Inherent in the subconscious mind are the fixed laws of nature, and it is the perception of these laws as embodied in our geniuses that we will undertake to discuss first. One of the most remarkable mathematical prodigies was Zerah Colburn, born in 1804, educated in nothing more than the grade school of a rural community in Vermont. He still was able to perceive immediately the correct answer to every mathematical question propounded to him when he was not yet 8 years of age. He was able to raise numbers up to the 16th power, give the roots of numbers down to the same power, and perform all manner of number magic such as was not possible to a single mechanical contrivance of the day. And his answers were immediate. The remarkableness of his feats is all the more apparent when it is realized that the 16th power of 8 is 281,474,976,710,656, a number which it is extremely unlikely could even be read by our 8-year-olds of today. Blind Tom, an idiot from birth, had a prodigious musical capacity. Even as a child, he could reproduce on the piano any piece of music he heard, no matter how long or how difficult. With equal facility, he improvised an astounding array of musical composition. Beethoven was another such one, composing entire symphonies when still a child. Milton applied the fixed laws of the universe to the rhythm of his poetry. Perception of universal law. These laws of construction or rhythm or movement are inherent in each of us, for they are part and parcel of the universal subconscious mind. Time moves in accordance with these laws. And who is there who has not been able to wake himself from a sound sleep at an appointed hour simply because he consciously desired to before he went to sleep? Some never-sleeping presence within us keeps an eye on the clock, or simply on the movement of the universe, and if we desire to be awake by 6 or so, we are. Nature has thus fashioned the most reliable alarm clock of all, but our dependence upon mechanical contrivances dulls this faculty as it has dulled so many others. Great artists perceive intuitively the laws of combinations of colors. Great engineers perceive intuitively the sweep and scope of a building bridge or highway. Great writers perceive the intuitiveness of the innermost depths of the characters and stories they create, thus bring them into three-dimensional life form out of the printed page. Great scientists perceive intuitively the paths to new discoveries in physics, chemistry, and electronics. Did not Columbus himself sail toward the edge of a world which everyone said was flat? What else sustained him but his intuitive perception that the world was a sphere? The universe moves and combines and builds according to certain fixed laws. These laws are part of the subconscious mind and are available to our perception, if we will but clear away the doubt and skepticism and logical illogic that is forever cluttering up our conscious minds. The bud of perfection and the seed of genius dwell within each of us. It comes to everyone in some quiet hour and whispers of the truth. Who has not felt the excited certainty of an impending event, a new idea, a useful business, a new invention, a theme for a novel, a sunset that demanded to be painted, the precognition of a friend's devotion, a loved one's high regard? Who in his quiet hours has not looked at the stars and felt peace as deep within his soul? The magnificent order of the universe's laws was for a while apparent. The indwelling bud of perfection. Can we then be geniuses, even as those the world has known? The answer is that we not only can, but we are. Great genius lies dormant in each of us, waiting to be awakened. We've only to take down the bars, unlock the door, invite our silent dweller forth. It is ourselves who have locked him within his prison, and he aspires to be set free. We build his cage and bars and lock each time we say, "I'm not good enough. I don't know how. It's too hard for me. I'm poor, I'm sick, I'm tired, I'm nobody." We make of this mighty mind a pygmy, cowering in his cell, forced to act and create all our negative fears and doubts into actuality, and thus to reduce the temple of the universe to a sorry, fumbling, fear-ridden speck upon the earth. Geniuses we all shall be when we know and recognize and practice the truth. Not geniuses begotten by a whim of fate, but geniuses because we have controlled our destinies. Geniuses because we move in accord with the invincible power of an expanding universe. Thought transference. Mental telepathy or thought transference is today perhaps the most widely known and discussed attribute of the subconscious mind. Scientific men, concerned only with the observation and statistical classification of phenomenon, now tell us that if one man concentrates on an idea and another concentrates on attempting to determine what this idea is, it is very likely that the latter will grasp what the former is thinking about. There have been those who have attempted to prove that each human mind is like a radio transmitting and receiving station, and that one man may tune in on another man's frequency. The parallel is very weak. What manner of radio frequency curve could manage to support the billions of different frequencies assigned to the Earth's population? And since it has been proved that the higher animals respond to thought, there are also these frequencies to consider. No method of measurement has ever been devised that showed more than the very weakest brain radiations, yet thought transference may span all measurable space. No thought transference means that we are thinking into or with something that is everywhere at the same time and is used by all manner of life. It means that the universal subconscious mind is moved by a thought, and this movement is perceptible to each living organism. Thus, we are not actually transferring thoughts, but rather we are thinking them into and with the only mind there is, and they are then apparent to anyone who grasps the use of this mind, even vaguely apparent to those who do not grasp it. This mind is as big as infinity. Each person lives in it. Thus, a thought impressed upon it is everywhere at the same time. We are not transferring thoughts. We are all one, with one mind, and our thoughts are community property. If only we can perceive. Clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is an understanding or a vision of things to come. In no sense must this be considered as meaning that our lives are ordered or that our fates are predestined. Each of us is a product of his thought. The sum total of this thought determines our actions and opinions in any given circumstance. The next succeeding thought adds to or detracts from or alters what we are. In considering your own future, you need only be concerned with the conviction you are concerning it. Whatever your conviction is, there is your future. Even the paths you will tread toward it may be determined by simply considering your convictions about each possible road. The thing of tomorrow is the thought of today, and he who sees the future needs but understand his thought. There's a great deal more to clairvoyance than this. A barrage of cases is reliably recorded in which dreams forecast certain events which came to pass. People from all walks of life have testified to visions in which they saw themselves involved in some action in a strange place, only to later find themselves actually doing this same thing in the very place in the exact manner they had envisioned. Professional clairvoyants, whose mechanical instruments are the crystal ball, or the deck of cards, or the palm of the hand, or the movement of the stars, though oftentimes they are little more than shrewd psychologists, take from the subconscious mind an impression of their client's thought and translate it into the future. There is no time in the subconscious mind. Everything that has happened, everything that is happening, everything that will happen are all happening at one time in this mind, and that time is eternally now. For this mind, being infinite, contains an infinite number of possibilities, all of which are actual in eternal now. Substance and shadow. Materializing and dematerializing objects and circumstances verge on our conception of sorcery, or we relegate it to the realm of witches' tales. Yet once again, we are dealing with that which has been reliably recorded, and which must be, from the very nature of the subconscious mind, one of its inherent powers. The mate of the SS Vestries met a stranger on board his ship who told him to steer northwest, where this same stranger was subsequently rescued from a stranded ship. A hypnotized man may be told there's no chair in the room other than those occupied, and he will not see the chair. The thought or the idea of the chair is gone from his mind. He may stumble over the chair, proving it is still there, but it is there only because it still exists in the universal subconscious mind, planted there by the minds of those observing it, or every mind that ever has observed it. It is the chair, not in the first place only a thought conceived in the mind, made into physical reality by a man who thought he made a chair. Is it not true that if the thought connected with the creation of the chair had never existed, the chair would neither? The chair is not but consciousness resolved into form only by thought. made of the eternal substance of which all things are made, which is not substance at all, but merely intelligence. The spirit world. Contact with the spirit world also is one more manifestation of the power of the universal subconscious mind. We need not go so far as to say that those who have passed beyond the veil make themselves known to us only through certain mediums. Rather, it is enough that we remember two primary attributes of the subconscious mind. 1, it responds to suggestion. 2, it possesses the power to manifest physical reality from thought. All the phenomena of the seance can be accounted for with these two facts in mind. All the great mediums were and are possessed of another personality who assertedly dwells in the spirit world and makes contact with those departed souls who have something to say to friends and loved ones who have remained behind. In the trance, this spirit possesses the medium's body, usually assumes a drastically different personality from that of the medium, and proceeds to render acute and detailed information regarding present, past, and future events in the lives of people with whom the medium is barely acquainted or indeed has never met. Such information is often accompanied by disembodied hands and wraith-like faces hovering about the room, as well as objects moving and floating seemingly under their own power and accompanied by unaccountable rappings. Now, essentially, what the medium does is to put himself or herself into a self-imposed hypnotic trance, during which the subconscious mind is exposed and is quickly responsive to any suggestion offered it. When it is suggested that it is the spirit of one who has been taken by death, it becomes so, and the information it is able to offer is proof that it actually achieves this. Many investigators would have us believe that it is simply an illusion of the subconscious mind of the medium, that the departed spirit has not been contacted at all, that the medium has simply used the subconscious mind to elicit certain information that normally would be beyond his or her knowledge. This is sheer nonsense. There's only one mind after all, and we are all living in it. Whenever this mind becomes Dick Rowe, it is Dick Rowe, and that is an end to it. What the complete details of existence are on the other side of death, it will probably remain for one who actually returns from there to tell. But Dick Rowe, having been absorbed once more into universal mind, still exists in universal mind. Whatever Dick Rowe was in universal mind while alive, he must remain in universal mind when not alive, for the conception has already been placed there. Thus, when the medium evolves from the subconscious, the personality and identity of Dick Rowe, she is actually dealing with the spirit of Dick Rowe, the conception which exists in universal mind of Dick Rowe, for two absolutely exact conceptions are not two conceptions at all, but only one, and the Dick Rowe of universal mind responds to his call. Minor miracles of the subconscious. The phenomena of the seance have been exposed many times in dealing with those mediums who resort to trickery or legerdemain, but there remains a vast body of undisputed proof of moving and floating objects, ectoplasm gathering into hands and faces, spirit rapping, and the like, so as to leave little doubt but what the subconscious mind is often moved to perform these minor miracles at the medium's behest. It is interesting to note that the spirits are always quite vague as to what kind of life exists in the afterworld. They say it is quiet there, that it is peaceful, that they are happy, but beyond that, there seems to be a big breakdown in their communication. This would lead us to believe that the spirit conceived by the medium can effect no better description than the medium herself. Or perhaps existence on the other side is so drastically different from that in the physical world that no words or conceptions can be communicated from the subconscious to the conscious. More likely, the whole practice of spiritism is the wrong approach to dealing with the universal mind, and those who practice it are not armed with sufficient knowledge or concept of what they're doing to be able to effect any kind of perfect union. This much we can say: remarkable phenomena have been produced. The mighty power of the subconscious mind is once again revealed. Once more, we see the grandeur of man's destiny, how he is caught up in and part of the entire power of the universe. The gradual awakening. What are all these phenomena? We shall gain no insight into them by calling them trickery or hallucination. Too many scientific inquiries have set out to do just that and gotten nowhere. This body of evidence has existed for many centuries, tucked away in musty archives and pathetically labeled. Can't be explained, so probably didn't happen. The startling thing is that man has been content with his fumbling examination of the physical world, deriving some strange satisfaction in perceiving order about him, always recognizing that the monument of irrelevant facts he accumulated was his own headstone, but seemingly extremely reluctant to pursue any type of inquiry that might expose his own divinity and power. Only now, when scientific inquiry has had to reject its own notions of physics, of electronics, of time, space, and matter, only when physics has had to evolve a new quantum theory, which is more philosophical than scientific, have men reawakened to the possibilities inherent in the invisible world about them, and turned once again to the examination of what lies within the mind of man. The great British physicist Sir James Jeans has summed up the extent of scientific inquiry by saying, "It has become clear that the ultimate process of nature neither occur nor admit of representation in space and time." Bertrand Russell says, "The distinction between mind and matter is illusory." Thus, like it or not, all investigation of man's nature and his control of his environment must take up for study those phenomena which have always been classified as the supernatural. It seems strange that it has not been widely done before, since natural events and things by their very nature give no clue to the truth of man's destiny. It would seem that long ago the physical would have been labeled the unnatural, and men would have turned to the so-called supernatural for the truth about things. Whatever the purpose of the former by road, it is upon this latter path that man has embarked today. Things are thoughts. We have said that thoughts are things, but the premise that we are forced to adopt now is that things are thoughts. In other words, every object and circumstance and form in this world is purely mental and represents nothing more than an idea or a thought. This position will find many arguments directed against it, but they all have the same basis. The disputer will maintain that if the clock in your kitchen is only a thought, then you only think you see it, which means that it will not be there in the silent hours of night when you are asleep, yet you wake in the morning and find that the hands of the clock have moved in accordance with time, which proves that the clock was there all night. Similarly, he will say that you may only think you see a red flower, but a camera can be rigged to photograph the flower when no one is around, and the photograph shows the flower to exist and still to be red even though there was no one to perceive it. Such a disputer makes a fine argument in proof of a point that we have no quarrel with whatsoever. We are not saying that the physical objects of our world would cease to exist if there were no one around to perceive them. Of course they still exist, for they are not merely our conception any longer. They are conceptions in universal subconscious mind. What we are saying is that these objects are only ideas given form by the universal subconscious mind. As long as the idea persists in universal mind, so will the form persist. When the idea is altered in universal mind, so will the form be altered. When the idea disintegrates in universal mind, so will the form disintegrate. And most important of all, we are saying that the original idea and all evolutions of the idea are placed in subconscious mind by conscious mind. Things are conceptions rooted in universal mind. A conscious thinking entity or a group of conscious thinking entities places an idea in universal mind, which by its very nature creates that idea into physical reality. Thus, things are thoughts. They need no one around to perceive them in order to exist. They are rooted in universal mind, which holds them in form as long as the idea behind them persists. But this idea, this conception, this thought was placed in universal mind by a thinking, conscious entity living in the physical world. Thoughts become things. Things are thoughts held in form by the great creator, the universal subconscious mind, but a thing only becomes a thing as a result of a conscious thought. Thus man has ordered his world about him. Thus he lives surrounded by an environment of thought become things. He may change that environment by altering his thinking, but it most certainly will not change simply because there is no one around to observe it. We all live in the same mind. There are a vast number of conceptions and ideas in this mind, placed there by every organism and life force which has preceded us. These ideas and conceptions, once firmly implanted and crystallized, are made known to us through our five senses as things which we perceive in the physical world around us. This world, in its essence, is purely mental, and all exists in mind. What man concludes, God knows. What God knows, God creates. What God creates, man perceives. What man perceives, he believes to be outside himself, existing in the world around him, but the truth is it exists within him, for it exists in universal mind, and all of this mind is within man when his consciousness has expanded to encompass it. Pascal said, "The narrow limits of our being conceal infinity from view," which is simply another way of saying that to understand how all of life lies within us, we must abandon our sense of separateness and isolation and expand our consciousness to include all things. The illusion of time. Now, we needn't regard the law of thoughts becoming things as being attached to the supernatural. It would be a mistake to assume that what we are driving at in totality is simply a man sitting down and thinking, "I have a new car," with the result that, presto, the new car materializes out of thin air. Though without a doubt this type of immediate result lies somewhere in the future of man's evolution, has indeed been accomplished occasionally by a very few persons who have evolved ahead of their times, it is nonetheless true that very few of us will reach it in our lifetimes. But exactly the same result can be achieved by each one of us if we allow for the lag of time. Wherever we see the logical procedure of physical events, we discount all that might be miraculous. If you sit down and quietly say to yourself, "I'm going to get a new car," and keep assuring yourself of this over a period of weeks or months, you will first find yourself somehow getting the money to make the purchase, somehow visiting a number of new car showrooms, somehow finally arriving at the car you want, somehow buying it and driving it home. You may then return to the chair in which you sat when you first had the thought and be assured that you now actually have a new car. You thought you were going to get one. It is now outside in your garage. The only difference between it coming to you and to the man who might immediately materialize it by a miracle is the difference in time. And time, we know, does not exist in the universal subconscious mind. Thought is the only true action. Look around you. See your desk, your sofa, your bed, your refrigerator, your home, your radio, your television set. Each of these things is a thought. Somewhere, a man sat down and visualized each of them and said, "I'm going to make this thing," and presto, here is the thing in your home. A thought, a short time before a thing now. And the only reason we do not see the miracle of it is because of the lapse of time when motors and machines moved and were guided to form the component parts, assemble the thing into a whole, and ship it to us. We all live in the universal mind. We are not simply daily creating into physical reality through this mind those very thoughts and ideas of which we think. We form every physical thing from a substance which is not substance at all, but simply pure intelligence. We give this intelligence the form of our thought. We can neither start nor stop the process. We can only start and stop our thinking and our conceptions. As soon as we have crystallized the thought and adopted it, we are moved by the subconscious mind to perform those things which will give the thought physical reality. Beyond the point of having had the idea, we are moved by a power greater than we are to give this idea reality. We needn't drive ourselves or worry ourselves or fret about the problems. These will all be solved by subconscious mind, and we will be moved in the direction we must be. Our only free action is our thought. We are what we think. We do what we think. We become what we think, and thus it always must be. The properties of light. Let us return to this ephemeral physical world of ours. One of its interesting phenomena is light. Light always takes the path of least effort. Least effort is ordinarily the shortest distance between 2 points. But where light encounters resistance, it simply reflects off in the mathematically most perfect angle so as to maintain its maximum energy. Light is inherent in the universe, and the universe doesn't fight and strain and snarl. It does things the easy way. There are also some very interesting theories about light which indicate that which it reflects need not necessarily be true. Light consists of a stream of photons moving at 186,000 miles per second. These photons, of course, are invisible, but might best be described as approximating the shape of a silver dollar. Though infinitesimally thin, one theory holds that these photons move perpendicular to the pole of gravity, illustrating with a silver dollar, the dollar always must remain upright relative to the Earth's surface. Thus, if the photons come at us from an angle from above or below, they appear smaller than they actually are. For example, a man standing 20 feet away and 30 feet above you appears much smaller than he actually is. It is this quality of his appearance plus your own instinctive balance on the perpendicular to the pole of gravity that allows you to determine how high he is above you. According to the theory, what has actually happened to give the man this appearance is that the photons streaming toward you look smaller. The man has not changed in size. For example, place a silver dollar at arm's length, face toward you, and perpendicular to the ground. Then, keeping it perpendicular, move it upward until it is 2 feet over your head and still at arm's length. The dollar now will not only appear smaller, but will be an ellipse instead of a circle. Thus, the photons of light streaming from the man who is at an angle above you cause him to look shorter. His breath will be normal at his feet, but will gradually taper towards his head. It is this aspect of an object in space that we perceive with perspective, and it is the photons of light always moving perpendicularly to gravity that communicate this quality and relation of things to us, so says the theory. What do we see? Now, the photons moving at the speed of light have no measurable depths. In other words, look at from the top or bottom, they are invisible. Here the theory takes an interesting twist. If through some disruption of the pole of gravity or the imposition of some outside force, these photons could be made to lie on their sides so they were parallel to the Earth's surface, any object emitting them would be invisible to the eye. Scientists have worked along these lines for many years, with the thought in mind of disrupting the stability of the photons so as to make our machines of war invisible to the enemy. What man sets out to do, man does. Indeed, it will be difficult to remain attached to the final reality of the physical world the day man is able to cast any of his physical objects into invisibility simply by throwing a switch. To this very day, we do not know what it is we see in the world around us. We know it is something, but what we can determine about this something only convinces us that we know very little about it. Our postulate is that these things are thoughts made manifest, and when we are able to cast them into visibility or invisibility at will, who will dare maintain that they are things of themselves and completely apart from man? Thus, the shimmering ephemeral world about us is not a group of hard and substantial facts at all, but merely a world of shade and shadow, dimly perceived, flickering distortions on the walls of Plato's cave, vague indications of a mighty truth not seen. Heirship of God. Mental telepathy, clairvoyance, physical manifestation from thought, mental healing, any and all of the so-called supernatural phenomena of this world are possible to each man. He need not sweat and aspire and strain to achieve these things. He need only expand his consciousness to include everything around him. Through the unity of self thus achieved, he will perceive the laws of the universe as they are, and operating through and with them, he will attain ascendancy over space and time and the limits of matter. Locked in the fleshly limits of our bodies as we are, puppets driven by the five senses, victims of the constant beat of sensation which is always convincing us that the first reality is the world about us. It is a wonder that instances of highly developed intuition have ever become about it at all. But they still come. Hardly a week goes by without another unexplainable incident finding its way into mankind's history. The power is breaking through, making itself known, confirming our heirship of God, our joint heirship with the Creator of the universe. All things indwelling in God. It is thus intuition, upon which we must primarily depend in order to survive at the wonderful gate. Only through conscious contact with the universal subconscious mind will the truth be revealed. The discourse, arguments, and postulates of this book will help break down the barriers in the conscious mind, expose fraudulent convictions, cast off the limits of shadow thinking and hopelessness, allow you to look upward into the heavens and perceive God as He is. You'll not need reason and argument to convince you then. You will see, intuitively perceive. The end of all searching will have arrived, and the power of the universe will be yours. Follow the heart. This is a world in which the heart rules and never the head. The conscious mind of man has concerned itself with the frivolous ends of existence and has created a great lock against the powers of the subconscious mind. The heart knows the truth of all things. It is the heart that is the seat of intuition. Man's hope to arrive back home in the midst of and encompassing all the magnificent truth of his unlimited power. Heed the voice of the heart. Close your ears against promptings of the conscious mind. The heart knows the way. In the innermost depths of your being, it whispers the truth every minute of every day. Intuitively, it perceives. Intuitively, it communicates. Leave to your conscious mind the doing of that which is Caesar's. Leave to your heart the doing of that which is God's. Thus, it is that as you proceed, you will find yourself being led more and more by your heart. The truth of a feeling that rises within you will ask for no argument or examination. It will come to you as a whole thing, and you will ask of no man, whether it be fact or fiction, truth or fantasy, good idea or poor. It will be a light that never was on land or sea, and you will follow it, for it will have penetrated to your soul. It will be a great deal more than that which, up to this point in your life, you may have termed a hunch. It will be a great deal more than that which you might formerly have thought it be a lucky guess. It will take root deep within your being and become one with you, and you will take the paths of your life with unshakable vigor and faith to see that it is affected in the world about you. Thus success will come, thus health, thus love, thus peace, thus a grander purpose and sweep than ever existed on earth alone, for it will proceed from the heavens. Truth versus delusion, the duality of mind, and the apparent duality of our world is a trying thing to cope with if things are but thoughts and in true essence merely intelligence cast into form. What then of the ghosts of haunted houses, the disembodied faces and hands of the seance, the specters that we often attribute to the night? What of the fearful visions of our waking hours and the distorted images of our nightmares? What of the deluded and lost souls who people our lunatic asylums and fancy themselves to be Napoleon or Marie Antoinette? What of our psychotics and neurotics who dwell half in this world, now assuming one personality, now another? Where is the fine line drawn between thoughts becoming things and thoughts becoming delusions, even insanity? Among the insane, there will be found those who think they are birds, those who think they are persons from the past, great persons of our time, various kinds of animals. Among the insane will be found people suffering from all manner of fantastic delusion, which in view of our saying, what a man can become whatever he thinks, might prompt some person to ask, why has this man who thinks he is Napoleon not become Napoleon, but only insane instead? The answer to this well-taken question is that the very opposite of correct procedure has taken place in the mind of the insane man. Instead of his conscious mind controlling the subconscious mind, it has lost all control. The man is a victim of any passing fancy that may lodge for a moment within whatever conscious faculties he has left. Since there are billions of impressions available in subconscious mind for him to perceive, he simply grasps one according to its attractiveness and adopts it temporarily. He does not become the thing he fancies. His conscious mind fits too rapidly. He is buffeted about in the lap of intelligence by every movement of his subconscious mind. Control is gone. When control goes, there comes insanity. Very often we are witness to the same thing in our very aged or infirmed. The conscious mind becomes affected and begins to lose control, and before our eyes we see great changes in personality taking place. Such a person becomes helpless. His thoughts move at random, scattered, and haphazardly, casting him now into irrationality again, into extreme lucidness. The cornerstone of personality. We must remember that the conscious mind is the cornerstone of personality. It fills our lives with order and controls the subconscious mind in its great creativeness. When control by the conscious mind disappears, the individual disintegrates, becoming insane or infirm. That is why it is balance we strive for, balance between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Therein lies the truth of a genius. When the conscious mind vastly subordinates the subconscious, we find an individual who lives beset by all manner of insurmountable problems, for he sees himself living in a world where all things are greater than he. When the subconscious mind subordinates the conscious, we have an individual who is irrational, sometimes insane, even though on occasions he will exhibit some remarkable powers. It must be remembered that the universal subconscious mind responds to suggestion. The more ordered and authoritative the suggester, the conscious mind, the more ordered and clear-cut are the manifestations of the subconscious mind toward the Superman. We need not set immediate goals for ourselves in the realms of mental telepathy, mental healing, and manifestation from thought. As William James so aptly stated, all consciousness is motor, and immediately you become possessed of an idea or a desire, you will find that it sets you into action, which inevitably results in its creation in the outer world. For the while, there is no point in attempting a shortcut through time and space by mind power. It is enough to free your thinking of its negative bonds, to allow yourself to take free part in the creation of your own wishes and desires, and thus to fill your life with achievement and good. But let us not forget that the possibility is there, the possibility of astounding shortcuts to all things, which will be ours the day we have rightfully claimed our places in the universe. We are evolving towards the Superman. We are evolving towards undreamt of powers. The bud of this future lies within us now. We have only to loose it, and it will begin working in our lives as a tangible, vital presence for the good. In the words of Walt Whitman, "From this hour I ordain myself loosed of limits and imaginary lines, going where I list, my own master, total and absolute." Listening to others, considering well what they say. Pawing, searching, receiving, contemplating, gently, but with an undeniable will, divesting myself of the holds that would hold me. Our goals. It is our intuitive perception of the laws of the universe that reveals to us God as He is. We need only put all wishful thinking aside, save the desire to know the truth. Expectation and desire will light the way in the quietness of our meditations. The inner eye will see, and the inner ear will hear, and the truth shall be revealed to us, and the truth shall make us free. We shall sense the future dwelling within us, know the thoughts and hopes of all mankind, know that the way we lived our yesterday has determined our today, know that the way we live our today will determine our tomorrow. True intuition will be ours, the light that never was on land or seal. The soul of all life is our own soul. Wherever eye falls, it sees not but a reflection of yourself. The mighty mind in which you live is all things to all life in all places. And it is the same to you. You are fashioned from the intelligence of God. You are one with the intelligence of God. You need only to rub the mote from your eye, clear the wax from your ear, and there becomes apparent a universe which has cradled you in everlasting arms, a universe that responds to your every mood and need and desire. We know where the path leads, ever upwards to a oneness with God. We know that the purpose of life is a constantly expanding consciousness, and we know it is within our power to expand our consciousness to encompass all of the life about us. This is our destiny. We may aid it or obstruct it as we wish, but we cannot stop it from eventually arriving. We may use it to fill our lives with good, or we may use it to fill our lives with error and evil. It matters not to the subconscious mind, for every soul who falls behind another steps ahead. He who seeks will find. He who abandons the search as hopeless will find at once a hopeless life. It is a question of courage and effort, a question of desire. We either work in accord with the power within us, or by opposing it destroy ourselves. It is for each man to decide. We seek wisdom and knowledge. Our goals are power with pity, wealth with charity, health with temperance, love without lust. We accede to these goals through no moral pressure. They are true goals because they are truth. We are embarking on man's greatest age, an age wherein the first movements are apparent to banish disease and suffering and poverty from the face of the earth, an age wherein the brotherhood of man finally will arrive in all its magnificent peace and harmony. A review. Here for ready reference are the principal points covered in this lesson. 1. The studies of Dr. J.B. Rhine have proved conclusively the validity of extrasensory perception. 2. These truths are now being proved by scientific investigation. 3. The overwhelming evidence of the superphysical power of the universal subconscious mind has been recorded in all times by extremely reliable persons. 4. Genius perceives the fixed laws of nature in at least one aspect. 5. The bud of perfection or genius dwells within each of us. 6. The thought of today is the thing of tomorrow. 7. Things are thoughts, ideas implanted in the universal mind. 8. We do not perceive the things around us in their true nature. 9. Our world is but a bare indication of the infinite possibilities of all things and all life. 10. The so-called natural world is the unnatural. The so-called supernatural world is the light of truth. 11. Space and time are illusions of man's locked-in viewpoint. 12. Things do not depend for their existence on being perceived, but on being implanted as ideas in universal mind. 13. Creation of any type is the manifestation of a miracle. We only regard it as natural because we see the processes of formation moving through space and time. 14. Expanded consciousness perceives time as a dimension and space as existing within. 15. Intuition will reveal the laws of the universe. 16. Intuition is not merely a hunch, but an irresistible light which must be followed. 17. It is enough for us now to affect creation through the established chain of physical movement. This we can do by refusing to accept doubt and fear. 18. Follow the heart. It is the seat of intuition. 19. The subconscious mind must always be controlled, for it proceeds irrationally of itself and depends upon the planting of ideas. 20. Lack of conscious control of the subconscious mind is insanity. 21. Denial of the subconscious mind is the birth of fear and futility. 22. Genius attains balance between the conscious and subconscious minds. Transfiguration. Slowly we are moving through the maze of complexity that surrounds our existence. Slowly, we are dissolving the illusions and half-truths that inhabit our minds and our powers. Gradually the clutter is being cleared away so that we may perceive the great and edifying truth in all its simplicity. The age is at hand, the dawn is near. In the words of Edward Carpenter, when the individual is no longer under the domination of the body and its heredity, but rising out of this tomb becomes Lord and Master of the body's powers and identified with immortal self of the world. Such is transfiguration. The whole of man's evolution is preparation for it. This is our path and our goal, the purpose of this study. Long and persevering as it may seem, it is but a negligible flash in the history of man. To him, who through it perceives the sublime feeling and power by which he is able to identify himself with the immortal self, all the ages of man will have directed him to that moment. There is no greater goal or undertaking within the realm of life and endeavor. What is a year in its attainment, or even a lifetime? May we once again urge you to the assiduous practice of the meditations. Unless you put the meditations to work for you, this entire book becomes naught but philosophy. If you are studying only for mental exercise, it would be better that you turn to logarithmic tables or higher calculus. It is your immortal reaching soul that will find food here unless you provide it with the living tool of the practice of meditation. The secret will pass you by, leaving you once again in the wild of limitless space and darkness. Only in proof is there conviction. Our meditation this time is aimed at intuitive perception of the unseen and unheard forces that surround us. Through reliance and immersion in universal mind, we shall become aware of the directions our lives are to take. We shall perceive the purposes of our tasks and the manner in which they must be performed. We shall find guidance through each day to the appointed hours when we shall fulfill those destinies that only we can fulfill. Put your faith and trust in the mind of God and follow the dictates of your heart. To quote Shakespeare, "To thine own self be true, and I shall follow like the night, the day. Thou then canst not be false to any man." Recommended readings: Law of Psychic Phenomenon by Thomas J. Hudson. The fifth meditation. I listen to the voice of the universe as it speaks within me. It is the voice of truth, and it guides me unerringly along the paths of my life. Somewhere deep within me, in the perfect bud of my soul, there stands an immobile universe where all things and all law lie revealed. I reach within to this place of peace and quietness. I hearken to the voice of my heart, close my eyes, and sense a living, breathing universe dwelling within me, and I dwelling in it. I am one with all people and all life and all things. I move in accordance with divine law. All the limitless power of creation is mine to draw upon. For it is in me and one with me, and I am of it. The answer comes with the question. The path is lighted with the first step. The way is cleared with the looking. The goal is in sight with the desire. I know that I am fulfilling the fondest wish of God, for I place myself in His hands, taking each step of my life boldly and strongly, for it is God who prompts me, and God moves with sureness. I see tomorrow, for I know today, and this day is father of tomorrow. The things of my life are the children of my thoughts, and my thoughts of today are even now bearing the children of tomorrow. All that is good I desire, all that is evil I refuse to accept. By attaining I do not deprive. All that is and ever will be is available to every man. He need only ask, and it shall be given. I bind myself to the power for good that surges heavenward all around me. The limits and inhibitions of my past are gone. Each day is a new birth of my soul. Each day is another step on my journey to the oneness with God. I do not seek, I know. I do not strive, I am guided. And that is The Power of Intuition by U.S. Andersen. Yet another powerful chapter. Each of these meditations at the end will help you to connect with the universal mind. Check out my universal mind meditation, and I read all of these binaurally, so you can let them sort of seep in if that is something that you want to do. But this particular chapter emphasizes the power of the heart, the uniqueness of thought as a thing, how everything around us is thought, and connecting to that indwelling perfection, presence that is within you. Covers so many different topics, but his explanation of the way the universal mind is, and the discussion at the end of insanity is super interesting and very important, because I have that question all the time. Hey, if somebody is insane acting like they're a CEO at an insane asylum, why don't they become a CEO? It's because the conscious mind has lost control. The conscious mind, in conjunction with the subconscious mind, is the creator. The conscious mind is the creator. The subconscious mind is just the repeater. It's bringing up information but not manifesting. So there is a process of insanity that occurs, and your consciousness is the key. So there's some really powerful things in this particular chapter in the three magic words. So far, we've covered so many, but he goes back to the universal mind, and his explanation of it is very powerful. So I'd love to get your impressions of it. Intuition reveals the law of the universe, and intuition is simply us listening to the voice of the universal subconscious mind. And as he emphasizes, listening to the heart. In the reality transurfing information that we discussed on this podcast, the heart is where the truth is revealed, and coordinating with your heart and mind is the key for you to affect your reality in any way. And the voice that you will hear will come from the heart, that physical part of your body that is represented as your subconscious mind. Follow the heart, for that is the seat of intuition. I've had several episodes on intuition. We'll definitely include this episode in that playlist, but check that playlist out on intuition. Understanding your intuition is a way of communicating with your subconscious mind, getting to know it, hearing it speak with you, and listening to that voice. I would love to get your impressions of U.S. Andersen. How have these teachings affected you? Have these meditations helped you out? Have you changed your view of the universe? Does it make more sense now? When we talk about things like the law of attraction or reality creation, does it make more sense when Andersen explains it? Because I think it does. He is using things we already know about, but helping to explain and understand these concepts from the perspective of universal mind, helping you to understand that you are God. What are the three magic words? I believe the three magic words are I am God. Those are the three magic words to me that he's talking about in the title of this book. But there's a lot of different ways that you can interpret that title. I've always looked, is there a place where he says the three magic words are? And I don't think there is. But I think that he's making the case that we are all one and a part of this universal mind. And he's explained how to utilize that for intuition, how it explains the mysteries of the mind, and how form is taking place in manifestation through thought. A lot of this stuff we've talked about on the podcast, but it's coming from a very powerful source, and I love this book. I'd love to get your impressions of it. So put it in the comments. Put a like on this. People need to know the power of intuition and really about what it comes from. If you notice, this is not an instruction guide on how to use the intuition. It's an explanation of where it comes from. We all know how to use the intuition. But where is that voice coming from? It's coming from the universal subconscious mind, which is in direct communication with the heart. So in any case, all episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.